What's up, guys? It's Harrison here, and today I am going to be reacting to a video that popped up. I was watching it, and it's concerning a debate that has been ongoing in the fandom sci-fi community, specifically the Star Wars community, for a long time about the nature of the Force. And my thoughts on this are both nuanced and clear. I have what would probably be considered a heterodoxical view of the Force. It is very non-traditional. And this guy is... He's basically a purist advocate. This video, from what I can tell, is going to state the point of view and philosophy that the act of balance is referring to when the universe is in balance, it is the light side. But the dark side is a force of pure corruption and has no place in the balance. That the term balance is simply meant to contain and stop the spread of the dark side and its corrupting influence. The title of this video is George Lucas Settled Force Balance and the Fans Did Not Listen. This is by, where is it? This is by Imperial Remnant. So if you're interested, feel free to go check out the original video. I haven't seen too much of his stuff, but I saw this pop up, and I know that he doesn't really... He's very analytical when it comes to this, so I'm hoping that this won't just be from a place of pure emotion, that will actually draw from some of the facts, and take a deeper look, because I will very readily admit that a lot of the facts and a lot of George Lucas's statements have leaned towards the light side being the proper route to balance, and the idea of an equal number of Jedi and Sith, or the idea of a gray Jedi or something along those lines, is something that cannot actually work. It would not work in the long term. It sounds good, but it couldn't work. I am aware that Lucas has made several statements to that effect. My response to that, those of you who know me will know that my response is yes and I will get into the explanation of that probably towards the end, but I'm going to react and respond to this and see what points he brings up here.
Fandom has been arguing about this topic forever, but things really kicked off when the prequel movies came out about 25, 26 years ago. What does it mean to bring balance to the Force? Is it equal parts Jedi and Sith? Is it some kind of cosmic neutrality between light and dark? Is Anakin even the chosen one? Here's the thing, George Lucas has already answered these questions, and more than once, with very specific information. But a big chunk of the fandom keeps getting it wrong. So let's fix that, because this is fundamental to Star Wars. The most common version of the wrong answer that I generally see is that balance means equal sides, equal light, equal dark, maybe 2 Jedi, 2 Sith, which conveniently fits the prequel era for about 5 minutes. Maybe it means a gray Force user who draws from both. The idea sounds reasonable on the surface, but I think it's in using the word balance incorrectly. It's probably not the best word that could have been chosen for it. Balance is a symmetrical word. We use it that way all the time in the English language. But that is not how Lucas described it.
I mean, there are countless examples of quote-unquote gray users and gray philosophies throughout Star Wars. They're never called quote-unquote gray Jedi. But, I mean, they certainly exist, and they do very much succeed and live in harmony. I mean, he's conflating Jedi and Sith with the larger issue here. I hope that's not what he's going to continue to do. Because if he is, then he's right. If this is the route that he's going to go down, if he's going to go down what I'm starting to worry that he's going to go down, then I can see exactly where he would pull this conclusion from.
It in context of the Force. Not a single time. Not in any interviews, not in any commentaries, not in any books that I've read, not in any writer room recording interviews that I've seen. In context of the Force. It's worth understanding where this comes from so that we can correct it and get into what George Lucas actually says about it. And I am backing all of this up with every single source I can find because I do not want to be one of those creators who just puts words into George Lucas's mouth to justify what I think. The biggest part of confusion is when they talk about the prophecy in the prequel movies, and Yoda says that if they misunderstand the prophecy, it could be dire. Obviously, that's not how Yoda exactly says it, but that's the general idea. But a more detailed place where we can see this that creates a lot of confusion, and it's even a little bit confusing for me to try to describe, is in the Mortis arc in the Clone Wars animated series. This has 3 Force God-type characters, the Father, the Daughter, and the Son, and they live in a world outside of space and time. The Father literally keeps his children, one light and one dark, from destroying each other. He says things like, a family in balance, the light and the dark, day with night. These are Force avatars, and they use this strong imagery so that people remember it, especially in an animated series that, while I love it as an adult, it is geared for kids to understand. It's also important to note that this Clone Wars series was the gateway for a ton of fans, so they might have seen this before The Empire Strikes Back, where Yoda explains the Force to Luke Skywalker. Understanding the Force is fundamental for understanding everything that goes on in the Star Wars universe. That being said,
Okay, what's he gonna say here? Because, I mean, the Mortis arc is, not only foundational to, a lot of these Force philosophy theories, but I don't really see it. Like he just said, father, son, daughter, family, and balance. I don't really see how he is going to be able to twist this. Let's keep watching.
Some of these fans take this as the definitive version of what balance looks like, but a lot of the times it's being misunderstood. So inside Mortis, it's the son, the dark side, who keeps breaking things. The daughter repeatedly acts to defend the father and fix things. The son kills her. The father ultimately helps kill the son to stop the damage. And the official episode guide says that once that conflict ends, the imbalance on Mortis disappears.
What? I'm sorry. What? That is not how any of that went. No. Oh God, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of the Mortis arc. He can't be misunderstanding it that egregiously. He had to work to fit that into a narrative. He had to. Let's go back and listen to that. And I'm going to run this through.
Everything that goes on in the Star Wars universe. That being said, some of these fans take this as the definitive version of what balance looks like, but a lot of the times it's being misunderstood. So inside Mortis, it's the son, the dark side, who keeps breaking things. The daughter repeatedly acts to defend the father and...
Okay, let's stop right there, because there were 2 things there that need to be addressed. Number 1, yes. The son does, quote, as he very crudely says, break things. The dark side is primarily a force of destruction. That doesn't make it evil. That doesn't make it wrong. Destruction, by its very nature, is necessary for new life and new growth. Death is necessary to create new life. A forest fire can rain havoc, but in the wake of the forest fire, the ashes create a fertile ground for new plant growth. That's a very common metaphor, but destruction is not an unnatural state to be in. If it was all creation all the time, nothing would die, nothing would decay, that would be unnatural. As he said, you're talking about, as he called them, avatars of the Force. So they are representative of avatars of the cycle of life and death, of creation and destruction. At least in the limited context that he's talking about. And then go back. What was the thing he said about the son killing the father?
Dark side, who keeps breaking things. The daughter repeatedly acts to defend the father and fix things. The son kills her. The father ultimately helps kill the son.
Okay, there's so much wrong with that. I don't even know where to begin. The daughter does not need to defend the father, first of all. The father is the one who is regulating and controlling both of them. Second of all, the son, he just said the son kills the daughter. If you don't know the show, if you haven't seen it, you would interpret that to mean that the son intentionally and maliciously kills the daughter. The son loves the daughter. He loves his family. He's doing things out of spite and out of emotion and out of anger and rage, yes, but he loves the daughter. Did you see? Have you taken a good look at the son's reaction when he killed? It's on screen right here. Look at his face. He was torn apart by grief when he accidentally killed her. And yes, the daughter died to protect the father. He attacked the father, and the daughter died when she threw herself in front of the blade of Mortis. Yes, that part is correct. But that only happened because the father made a mistake and brought Anakin, the Chosen One, into their system. All of the imbalance that happened in the Mortis arc, you need to understand. All of that happened because the Chosen One was introduced to a static system and created a chain reaction which caused the death of the family. Because the father made a tactical mistake. That is what happened. If Obi-Wan, Anakin, and Ahsoka had never arrived on Mortis, none of that would have happened. The father, the daughter, and the son would have remained in balance and in synergy, as they had done for hundreds of thousands of years. Okay, this is going to be that kind of video. Jesus. Okay.
Fix things. The son kills her. The father ultimately helps kill the son to stop the damage. And the official episode guide says that once that conflict ends, the imbalance on Mortis disappears.
No, that's not what it says. It says that because the son, the daughter, and the father are now gone from Mortis and from the wider galaxy, their influence, that means that there are no longer any controls. There are no longer any monitoring on the flow and events that would trickle into the wider galaxy, specifically Abeloth. That's what they were trying to foreshadow without getting into too much into the New Jedi Order series. They were foreshadowing Abeloth. The celestial family of the Ones were the ones that were, pardon the pun, they were the ones that kept and maintained the barriers that kept Abeloth imprisoned. When all three of them died, that prison was not obviously immediately released, but the monitoring on it was gone. And the decay and the subtle ripples of the Force were allowed to start affecting it. which eventually helped to lead to her escape, if you will. No, the death of all of these is not seen as a good thing. It is a very, very bad thing. It is a harbinger of, now y'all are fucked. That's what it's a harbinger of.
The story is not about validating the dark side as a necessary equal half. It's about containing corruption before it destroys everything.
As I said before, if Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Ahsoka had never been brought to Mortis, none of this would have happened. The Son gained advantage because of his ability to manipulate and illuminate Anakin's ability to perceive the future. Because of that, he was able to twist Anakin into a irrational, emotional response. His body was flooded with emotion, flooded with panic, flooded with a desire to prevent that at any cost. Those types of extreme emotions, when left unchecked, yes, leads to a dark side corruption. This allowed the Son to gather enhanced dark energy. He was more powerful because the Chosen One was there, and his succumbing to darkness in that moment gave him more power. In that moment, the balance was upset. And that started the chain reaction that led to the death of all of the Celestials. The Son was being contained, as he so unbelievably crudely put it, just perfectly fine for hundreds of millennia.
The Father basically makes a sacrifice to contain the spread of the dark side. This is
Yes, that is true. This is accurate.
Actually very consistent with everything that Lucas has said on the subject. George Lucas did help make this show. Mortis wraps it in imagery so that it's easier to understand, but I think it backfires at times and it's easier to misread. So now I want to get into these sources that...
The Father sacrificed himself to stop the Son, because with the death of the daughter and leaving her remaining spiritual essence in the Morai Owl, the Son would have claimed dominion. There would be no light to counter the dark, even if the Father was able to keep the Son in check in his own little separate pocket. The light was dead. It was gone. So in order for that balance to be ultimately maintained, yes, the Father needed to sacrifice himself in order to take the Son out. It was a ultimate balance. No light, no dark, no balance, no controls, no feathers. It was a shitty solution, but it was the best solution that he could come up with at the time in the midst of an even shittier situation.
I've been collecting basically since I started this channel directly. I didn't realize this was such a big misconception. In 1999, while promoting The Phantom Menace, Lucas gives an interview to Cut magazine in Japan. The exact quote sourced to that interview, and I'll link it down in the description. The Phantom Menace refers to the force of the dark side of the universe. Anakin will be taken over by dark forces, which in turn destroy the balance of the galaxy. But the individual who kills the Emperor is Darth Vader, also Anakin. The tale meanders, and both the prediction and Qui-Gon are correct. Anakin is the chosen one, and he did bring peace at last with his own sacrifice. That is George Lucas, Cut Magazine, 1999, before the prequel trilogy is even finished. George Lucas was already describing balance as something that Anakin restores by killing the Emperor. Not by coexisting with the dark side, not by being a conduit for it, by ending it. This is him bringing balance to the Force in 1983. This is Anakin fulfilling the prophecy before we even knew there was a prophecy to fulfill. Then, in 2010, George Lucas...
I mean, if you're talking about Anakin's role in terms of bringing balance, when it comes to that prophecy, then yeah, that's accurate. But you're still missing a big part. And after listening to his position on the Mortis arc, I'm almost certain he's not going to address it. I'll address it at the end of this.
Sits down with the writers of the Clone Wars to work through the Mortis arc. The core of the Force. I mean, you got the dark side, the light side. One is selfless, one is selfish. And you want to keep them in balance. What happens when you go to the dark side is it goes out of balance and you get really selfish and you forget about everybody. Because when you get selfish, you get stuff, or you want stuff. And when you want stuff and you get stuff, then you are afraid somebody is going to take it away from you. Whether it's a person or a thing or a particular pleasure or experience. Once you become afraid that somebody is going to take it away from you or you're going to lose it, then you start to become angry, especially if you're losing it. And that anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. Obviously, the Sith are always unhappy because they never get enough of anything they want. Mostly, their selfishness centers around power and control. And the struggle is always to be able to let go of this stuff. Once again, that is George Lucas from a Clone Wars writers meeting from 2010, sourced to the Star Wars Complete Saga on Blu-ray featurettes. Full link down in the description. I wanted to play the video over instead of...
Okay. In that, Lucas is directly referencing the Force. I will grant you that. That is probably the strongest argument against my position. I will grant that. I think it comes down... Let me listen to that again. Let me get my thoughts in order here.
George Lucas sits down with the writers of the Clone Wars to work through the Mortis arc. The core of the Force. I mean, you got the dark side, the light side. One is selfless, one is selfish. And you want to keep them in balance.
He describes it as the core of the Force. One is selfless, and one is selfish. I'm going to say that that's inaccurate. And the reason that I feel that I can go against Lucas and say that this is inaccurate is that you cannot ascribe selflessness and selfishness as the core aspects of a metaphysical force. And I use that, no pun intended. You can ascribe that to users of the Force, but you cannot ascribe that to the core of the metaphysical energy itself. So I think in order for that sentence to make sense, he's talking about the Force users. So because of that, I think the theory that I have, and that I will conclude with at the end, I think it still holds up. Because even though he says at the core of the Force, or the core of the Force, that cannot be true in the rest of his sentence. Because a metaphysical cosmic energy at the core does not have a perception of selflessness or selfishness. The avatars of the Force would, like even the Celestials would. And the Jedi and Sith certainly do, and all the other Force-wielding traditions certainly do. But he's specifically referring to the core. And at the core of the Force, that is separate from any... It's not that the Force doesn't have a super sentience. That's not what I'm saying. It's that on that level, the super sentience wouldn't be able to comprehend or even execute selflessness or selfishness, because those concepts would be almost meaningless on a grand multidimensional scale. The act of selfishness doesn't really come into play or even apply when you're talking about grand cosmic forces and super sentience. It doesn't fit. Neither does selfishness, for that matter. I think for that reason, I'm able to say I disagree with Lucas on this. I disagree. I don't disagree with what he's saying here. I think what he's saying here needs a bit more context, because I think he used the core of the Force incorrectly, because what he says after cannot apply to the core of a metaphysical concept.
Happens when you go to the dark side is it goes out of balance and you get really selfish and you forget about everybody. Because when you get selfish, you get stuff, or you want stuff. And when you want stuff and you get stuff, then you are afraid somebody is going to take it away from you. Whether it's a person or a thing or a particular pleasure or experience. Once you become afraid that somebody is going to take it away from you or you're going to lose it, then you start to become angry, especially if you're losing it. And that anger leads to hate, and hate leads to suffering. Obviously, the Sith are always unhappy because they never get enough of anything they want. Mostly, their selfishness centers around power and control. And the struggle is always to be able to let go of this stuff. Once again, that is George Lucas from a Clone Wars writers meeting from 2010, sourced to the Star Wars Complete Saga on Blu-ray featurettes.
And that makes perfect, absolute sense if you are talking about the Jedi and the Sith. That makes absolute perfect sense. There's nothing wrong with what he said if you examine it in that context. In terms of the Sith, absolutely. There is nothing inaccurate about that. But that is a very fine distinction that we need to make there.
Full link down in the description. I wanted to play the video over instead of me reading his words, but I'm afraid of copyright infringement. Listen to those words carefully. Going to the dark side is what throws things out of balance. The light side is not one half of a cosmic scale that needs to be kept teetering in balance. It is the default state. The dark side is the corruption of it. Lucas is not describing a yin-yang equilibrium where both sides need equal representation to keep things stable. He is describing selfishness as a disease that disrupts the natural order, and the light side as what health looks like. This is not just interview material. The movies themselves are consistent in this message. In The Phantom Menace, Qui-Gon brings Anakin before the Jedi Council and connects him directly to the prophecy of the Chosen One, the one destined to bring balance to the Force. Mace Windu says it plainly. You refer to the prophecy of the one who will bring balance to the Force? You believe it's this boy? The prophecy is introduced as something the Jedi believe in, and its content involves restoration, not equilibrium. In Revenge of the Sith, Obi-Wan's final words to Anakin on Mustafar make the intent explicit. Standing over the burning boy who is part brother and part son, it used to be his closest friend, he shouts, "You were the chosen one. It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them.
The prophecy never said that. It never... Okay, first of all, the prophecy was that Anakin was the chosen one who would bring balance to the Force. It never said he wouldn't destroy the Sith. The prophecy never said that Anakin would be a Jedi. I mean, let's talk about that for a moment. It never claimed that Anakin would be a Jedi. The Jedi themselves put their own interpretations onto prophecy. This is the Jedi's interpretation of the prophecy. We have to remember that every time, like even as Yoda said, the prophecy may have been misread, in which case we may have made a big mistake. So they, in those movies, they themselves are aware that their interpretation is not omniscient, that their reading of the prophecy may have been false. So their words cannot be taken as iron hard realities of the situation here.
Balance to the Force, not leave it in darkness. Destroy. That is his word. It's not balance out. It's not make equal. It's not complement. It's to destroy. And then going forward.
Yes, and Obi-Wan at that age, as we all know, is the ultimate divine authority on what the intent and overall deepest meaning of the multidimensional cosmic force is. Obviously. No disrespect to Obi-Wan, but that is not... Obi-Wan's word cannot be taken as a literal interpretation of a justification of the nature of light and dark here. I mean, at some point, certain characters need to sit down and know their place. And that is not Obi-Wan's place to dictate that. He was in no position to do that. Besides which, he was emotional. He was speaking from emotion. I mean, the words may have been profound, and they were obviously designed to gain a reaction from the audience, ironically enough, which was based in emotion. But that was not a deep philosophical debate around a campfire of burning lava. It was said in the heat of the aftermath of the fight they had just ended, when Obi-Wan was filled with adrenaline and filled with all these emotions, that Obi-Wan himself acknowledged that, yeah, he was filled with emotion at that point. You could hear it in his voice and in the novelization. You could hear that. This guy has a tendency to ascribe gospel to things that have no business being gospel. I'm sorry.
In the continuity, but back in time, Return of the Jedi, it happens. Vader throws Palpatine into the reactor shaft. The last two Sith are dead, and the official StarWars.com Force databank, which, as far as I'm concerned, which is as close to canon-facing official summary as we can get at this point because I do not have George Lucas's direct number, closes the loop with this sentence. The Chosen One had indeed brought balance to the Force by destroying the Sith. That is StarWars.com, the Force databank, once again linked down in the description. That is the official resolution, sourced on record from the primary Star Wars website. It says destroying the Sith, not balancing them, not coexisting with them, destroying them. Now I want to dig into why this equal side...
Again, as I will say at the end of this video, one word: conflation. Be very, very cautious about conflation.
This thing doesn't really hold up when you look at it logically. I have a go-to response that I give in comments or when I'm talking to people about what I think it is. It's a little bit extreme, but I always say that Luke Skywalker doesn't have to go and murder somebody for every person that he saves, countering a bad act with a good act. So the wrong version of this that I hear most often is that at the end of Revenge of the Sith, there are two Jedi left, Obi-Wan and Yoda, and two Sith, Vader and Palpatine. We can even ignore the fact that going forward we find out that more and more people have survived Order 66. But that's 2 and 2 if you've just seen the movies, no additional information at all. You would say that means your scale, your Force scale, is perfectly balanced. But Lucas addresses this exact thing directly in the 2010 writers' meeting. He points out that the dark side is in charge of the galaxy at this time. That's not balance, that's darkness. The presence of the Sith does not create equilibrium. Their presence is the imbalance. The whole point of Anakin fulfilling the prophecy is that it ends the state. Two Jedi and two Sith existing at the same time does not find the galaxy in harmony. It was the galaxy under Sith domination with a handful of survivors hiding in the desert. Yes, obviously I know with more stories there's more nuance to it, but that makes your scales even more out of balance. I also like to point out that the Force is bigger.
Yes, of course. And then what happened after that? What happened after Vader killed Palpatine? Force was in balance, with a myriad of light and dark Force users cropping up all over the place. You had Luke's Jedi Academy, and you had several Darksiders try to come up. There were differing times of strife. Sometimes one won, sometimes the other won. I mean, the idea that that was the end of the struggle is ludicrous. I mean, even if you take the Disney corporatization canon that they're trying to push now, even that is proof of the folly of what he's saying here. Because no, it absolutely was not the end. Because what happened? Luke's Praxium was destroyed, the Jedi were obliterated, the First Order was created, Palpatine was in the shadows. He apparently had an army of essentially death cultists, all of whom were Force sensitive, all of whom worshipped him. He was basically becoming essentially a canonized version of like Dark Empire Sidious, except the Disney version of that. How the hell was the Force balance maintained at that point? So, no, the Disney canon version did far more to destroy the meaning of that prophecy than the Legends continuity did. The Legends continuity upheld that prophecy. In the Legends continuity, that prophecy was upheld. In the Disney canon version, it was not. It lasted for all of, 5, 10-ish years? And maybe not even that, because it was a mask. Okay, but now he's going to talk about the Force priestesses. This should be interesting. And again, let me be clear. I am not trying to insult this guy. I am not degrading him. He probably has some great videos on his channel. I am saying in this particular instance, he has an opinion. And he is trying very hard to present facts that reinforce that opinion. To be fair, some facts do, but as I said, you need greater context and you need greater perspective on what is actually happening, rather than taking a look at the surface level, like Star Wars databank. The site that is so much watered down, kidified, like boilerplate elevator speech version of events and analysis. I mean, Star Wars databank is unbelievably surface level. And when you're talking about like the deep nature of the Force itself, you can't afford to be surface level like that. You can't afford to be boilerplate. I mean, I'm sure that, you know, the Star Wars databank is like a great cash cow for Lucasfilm and for Disney, and like all the little kiddies love to go there. But we're having a grown-up conversation here, and we need something more than Star Wars databank, or even Wikipedia for that matter, with how unbelievably Disneyfied Wikipedia has become. We need book source material. We need author comments, we need Lucas comments, we need movie quotes, we need book quotes. That is what we need here. Those are the sources that he needs to be pulling from.
makes your scales even more out of balance. I also like to point out that the Force is bigger than the Jedi and Sith religions. These are man-made religious constructs. They do follow the light and the dark side, but there's a lot more to it. A lot of the time when these kind of conversations come up, we get to the problem with the gray Jedi.
Okay, so follow that train of thought. You have, I saw this beautiful metaphor like the other day. You have two dots there. You have a dot here, and you have a dot here. I am begging you to connect them. Connect those two dots for me. Okay? You just said it. You just said it. So what does that tell you about the broader picture? You just said it. So continue to follow that line. I'm willing to bet my reputation that he's not going to.
Theory. This is a fan theory. This is not a George Lucas creation. This is not an official part of Star Wars. There is a reason why the equal sides thing is so persistent, and it is not really about the lore. It's kind of about person's individual taste. The idea of a gray Jedi is a Jedi who walks a middle path with the light and the dark on either side of him, and it doesn't fully succumb to each. You can kind of think about it when you play a video game, when you make decisions that either make you evil or good. You can game that system and keep your bar right there in the middle, but that's not how the Force works. That's not how these people in this universe work. The idea of it is appealing. You kind of get the best of both worlds, and it sounds like you put some thought into it. It sounds like it's a nuanced approach, but it's really not. It's just wrong. Another go-to response that I have is,
where's your evidence for that? Where is the evidence that that does not work? Because I can show you a whole bunch of evidence where that does work. I can show you a whole host of organizations and Force traditions that did use that. Not as crudely as he put it, but that did have the philosophy of acknowledging, recognizing, and respecting both sides of the Force. There are many that I can give you. I can give you three off the top of my head right now. Let's see. Number one, the Jedi Order, the precursors of the Jedi Order that were created, came together on Tython, and first learned the ways of the Force. That's one. Second one, Witches of Dathomir. They were both dark and light side users existing in harmony. And this is obviously in the Legends version again. And the third one is, wait for it, Luke Skywalker's Jedi Praxium. Okay? I can list more, but I think you get the idea.
so you look at more Eastern religions, the word balance could be replaced with being centered. So a Jedi being centered would mean that they're in the light, not that they're in between two worlds. However, to make things a little bit more confusing, there are some real-world philosophical traditions, from Taoism to Jungian psychologically. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that word wrong, that one's new to me.
Jungian is how it's pronounced.
Where balance between opposites is exactly what health looks like. But George Lucas built Star Wars on a different framework.
Then don't reference those, because you referenced before being in the light in reference to some of those monastic East Asian orders. They don't deny the existence of darkness. They are at peace with their darkness. They acknowledge it, and they control it, and they are able to work in harmony with it. Ironically, as you brought up the Force priestesses in that one clip, so let me bring that up. The journey that Yoda goes on at the end of the Clone Wars series, what does he say? In order to defeat his darker half, what does he do? What method does he use to slay the dark side of himself? I'll wait. Spoiler alert. He doesn't. He doesn't. He incorporates it. He absorbs it. He recognizes it and acknowledges its existence. He does not excise it. Because, as he said in the novel, to loop back around to a novel quote, the more that you fight the dark side, the stronger the dark side becomes. The more that you resist it, the more power you give it. Let's continue.
In his telling, the dark side is not the necessary opposite of light. It is what happens when someone or something chooses selfishness over compassion. You cannot be both at once. Lucas said this directly in a 2012 interview with Bill Bradley. People have a tendency to confuse it. Everybody has the Force. Everybody. You have the good side and you have the bad side. And as Yoda says, if you choose the bad side, it's easy because you don't have to do anything. Maybe kill a few people, cheat, lie, steal, lord it over everybody. But the good side is hard because you have to be compassionate. You have to give of yourself, whereas the dark side is selfish. Once again...
Yes, and if you are talking about allegorical lessons that the movies can teach you, sure, but we're not talking about allegory. We're talking about the literal Force in the context of these movies. Again, conflation.
Link down in the description. This means as an individual, you have to choose. You can't just split the difference and take the best of both worlds. Being a Jedi, living in the light, being a selfless person, it's a lifetime effort. The dark side is never fully gone. People always have bad tendencies. Someone could always have a bad day. Qui-Gon Jinn, who I consider the most shining example of what a Jedi should strive to be, can be in a bad mood. He can get angry. It's not succumbing to that. He doesn't not have emotions. These are still human characters. Even the alien ones are very human-centric characters. And since we're here down in the mud trying to figure all this out, me trying to clear things up, there is one more thing that seems to branch off of this and is very closely related that I've been seeing a lot more in the last couple years than ever before. And the wrong answer in that is that for Anakin to fulfill the prophecy, he also had to wipe out the Jedi or assist in the Jedi being wiped out or allow the Jedi to being wiped out. A lot of people think that that is the balance needed on both sides. The Jedi had to go and then the Sith had to go. They're equally diminished. Sith and Jedi both gone. That reading falls apart and conflicts with the source material. Obi-Wan's exact words on Mustafar, once again, you are meant to destroy the Sith, not join them. The prophecy pointed at the Sith. Full stop, that's it, just the Sith. The destruction of the Jedi Order was not Anakin fulfilling his destiny. It was Anakin failing it. It was Anakin being corrupted. The dark side is corruption. It was the Sith manipulating the Chosen One into becoming their weapon, Sidious's weapon, before he would become what he was supposed to be. Luke...
Okay, first of all, manipulating Anakin into failing the prophecy is a bit premature because Anakin did not fail the prophecy. Second of all, as we have discussed, this is the Jedi's interpretation. They are conflating the word Sith with the dark side. I sort of spilled the tea on what I'm going to be talking about at the end, but yeah, that's the core of it. And that is the big mistake.
Lucas made this explicit in that 1999 Cut magazine interview. Anakin will be taken over by dark forces, which in turn destroy the balance of the galaxy. Destroy the balance of the galaxy. That is the language of corruption, not completion. The prophecy was always about the Sith. Anakin spending 20 years as Vader was a detour. It was not what was intended. It was not the destination. So all my ranting and raving, what is the clean, actual answer to this? In George Lucas's Star Wars, balance in the Force is not coexistence with the Sith. It is the restoration of the Force's natural state after dark side corruption has overwhelmed the galaxy. The light side is the baseline. Selflessness, compassion, connection. That is what the Force looks like when it is working properly. The dark side is what happens when someone chooses fear and greed over all of that, and that choice spreads outward and destabilizes everything. Anakin Skywalker did not bring balance by being a bridge between two necessary opposites. He brings balance by ending the Sith. That's what Qui-Gon believed, what Obi-Wan believed, what the official databank confirms, and what George Lucas has described on many occasions. On camera, in writing, in books, and in the films themselves. The misconception has always been about reading balance in the ordinary English sense of symmetry. Lucas used it as a different sense entirely. Once you see that, this whole arc from The Phantom Menace to Return of the Jedi snaps into very clear focus. It was never a story about keeping two sides equal. It was always a story about one man destroying a corruption that had swallowed the galaxy and finally letting go. Yes, his son, Luke Skywalker, is a big part of that puzzle and wakes up Anakin Skywalker inside Darth Vader, but Luke was never the chosen one. Killing the Jedi is not bringing balance. The Jedi and the Sith are mortal constructs. The Force is bigger than all of that. Obi-Wan Kenobi describes it in A New Hope. It's in everything. It permeates everything. So bringing it down to just two man-made institutions actually diminishes the Force itself.
Then what the fuck do you call what you've just been doing? I'm sorry for losing my temper, but you just contradicted yourself. You just said that the Force is bigger than the Jedi and the Sith, these man-made constructs. You even just said and admitted that breaking it down and shallowing it out to those institutions is demeaning to the Force itself. Yet that is exactly what you have been doing this entire video. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit heated now, but that right there is proof to me that this is not an analytical perspective. This is you having an opinion and trying to weasel facts in to fit that opinion. It's possible that you didn't see it, but I don't see how you couldn't have seen it, because you literally just said the Force is bigger than the Jedi and the Sith in your closing argument. After you wrote out the script, you put that in your closing statement, which means that you know that you are referring to two separate things when you're talking about the dark side versus when you're talking about the Sith. You know that because you just demonstrated it.
So I hope that video and that evidence can clear things up for some of you. I do encourage everybody to go and check those links, because this is...
Okay, that's the end of the video. The reason I am upset is not because because I don't think you made a mistake. If you did make a mistake, if somehow you did not catch this and you did not draw that line, then I apologize. And please let this video be an educational tool for you. But if you did not make a mistake, if you know what you just wrote down, and if you know and see that your concluding statement right there that you wrote out in a script, I'm certain that this was written out, is a direct contradiction of all the implications that you've been saying previously. If that is the case, then you are pushing a narrative. And that is why I am unhappy. That is why I am heated. Okay. Now for my closing statement. As I've been hinting and Loki stating up until this point, the biggest problem that you have here, that a lot of people have here, almost everyone that makes this comparison and follows this train of thought, the biggest problem they have is conflation. They are conflating the dark side with the Sith. Let me be very, very, very clear. The Sith are a corruption. There is no coexisting with the Sith. They are, with literally one or two standouts in the myriad thousands of years of their history, they are selfish, they are narcissistic, they are power hungry, they are either psycho or sociopathic, and they take the core tenet that they have is selfishness. They cannot and should not be coexisted with. That is correct. That is very, very different from saying that the dark side of the Force in and of itself is an abomination and unnatural and corrupting. Because as he just admitted, and as we have discussed, the Sith are a man-made, or in this case mortal-made, religious institution that was constructed around an interpretation of an aspect of cosmic energy. They are not the only practitioners of the dark side in the galaxy. They are not the only interpretation of the dark side in the galaxy. Just as the Jedi are not the only interpretation of the light side in the galaxy. There are many, many other orders of Force users, or even scholars of the Force. And for that matter, there have been several different incarnations of the Jedi Order that have their own perspectives and doctrines when it comes to Force philosophy. It is not something that is set in stone. The Jedi are mortal. They view things through a mortal lens. I'm not saying that the Jedi are always wrong, but I am not saying that their perspective on the Force is the ironclad reality of the cosmic balance. It is their interpretation of it. For that matter, I'm not saying that my interpretation is the correct one. Don't listen to me. Go meditate and find your own connection with the Force. Absolutely. Don't take me as the absolute authority. I'm just pulling from larger evidence. In the context of the show, the closest things that we can get to absolute, definitive understanding of the Force itself are the Mortis gods, as well as the Bendu in Rebels, even though that's mostly Disney-fied. The Mortis arc was created before Disney took over and destroyed the continuity. So that is still reputable, and that can still be looked at and analyzed. Those statements and those actions were taken by beings that, even though they were separate from the larger superconsciousness of the Force, were probably the closest thing to deities and avatars of the Force that we are ever going to encounter, aside from the Force priestesses. To be clear, if left unchecked, the dark side is dangerous. If left unchecked, a fire is dangerous. At the same time, if left unchecked, the light is dangerous. If left unchecked, creation is dangerous. Do you know what happens when creation runs out of control and goes haywire? Do you know what that's called? Cancer. It's called a tumor. It's called the rapid uncontrollable growth without any sort of restraints on it. And when there's nothing left to consume, it will be the only thing left, and it will eventually start eating itself. Endless perpetual creation is just as dangerous as endless perpetual darkness. Because again, we are looking at this from a large scale perspective. We're not looking at this from an individual to individual perspective. What's up, everyone? This is me while editing this video. A whole lot of the hey guys, so sorry about this, but the last part of the video where I recorded the whole my personal interpretation of the Force section, it got lost, and that part of the video was corrupted, so I'm gonna have to do it again. Probably get to that in another different Star Wars section, maybe on combination of Star Wars and metaphysics and all of that. I might squeeze it in somewhere. But this video is now over an hour anyway. It went on way longer than I expected a reaction to a not even 16-minute video to be. So yeah, I apologize that the rest of the footage got corrupted, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care, thank you so much for watching this video, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks, guys.